Shall we start, Omulda? It's 7 right now. What do we do?
May you wait? May we wait for a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes more?
2 or 3 minutes. Okay.
As Madam said.
Hello, Rehan. How are you?
Sir, Assalamu alaikum, sir. Rehan is speaking.
Welcome, Rehan. Thank you for joining.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Good to see you.
Okay. Okay. तो microphone मुझे और off रखते होंगे.
Right. We are waiting for your speech.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Rehan bhai.
Assalamu alaikum, Jubair. It's a great opportunity for all of us, especially to get Salehuddin sir over here.
Right, sir.
I think it's an opportunity, and we learn again something new from sir.
Right. And thank you so much, Rehan bhai, for inviting us actually and basically let us know about the meeting today. Thank you so much.
I joined BRAC University under the supervision of sir, and sir was the head of residential campus. Even, it was directly reportable to him. And he has great contributions to take BRAC University to this level today. So it's a great opportunity. Our hearty thanks to sir and our regards to sir. I hope that we'll have a very good time and we'll inculcate all the new learning from this session today. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for setting the platform.
Thank
for
you.
us.
Thank you.
Shumon, let us start the program. We are already running late by 3 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
We are starting.
Okay. It's okay.
So we are starting, ladies and gentlemen. Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. May I now have the privilege to extend a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Department of Commerce, P.N. Das College, to the inaugural session of this international online seminar titled Motivating the Youth in Times of Pandemic, organized by the Department of Commerce, P.N. Das College, in collaboration with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the institution. Let me also take this opportunity to thank all of you for accepting our invitation and giving us this gift of your presence in this August forum. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also a matter of great honor for all of us here at this college that we are joined by a very renowned resource person, Professor Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed, and the registration of over 250 participants from all across the globe, from far off Brazil, the United States and the Philippines, to our neighboring Bangladesh, and also a diverse representation from many states in India as well. I wish all of you a pleasant session and a worthy learning experience. I welcome you once again on behalf of the college and the Department of Commerce. Now, without further ado, I would request the chief patron of this seminar and the guiding spirit to all of us in this college, Dr. Shurmila Dey, Honorable Principal, P.N. Das College, to start off the seminar on a happy note with her welcome remarks. Madam.
Thank you, Shumon. Respected resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed, and dear participants. On behalf of P.N. Das College, I welcome all of you to the international webinar on motivating the youth in times of pandemic, jointly organized by the Department of Commerce and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of P.N. Das College. The topic of the webinar is highly relevant in today's time of pestilence and paranoia. These are the times haunted by a constant fear, yet these are the times we need to combat all negativities with the utmost courage. For the younger generation, in the process of pursuing a career, the pandemic poses a magnitude of uncertainty. The future that is otherwise full of possibilities and opportunities looks distant and a bit uncertain. We need to encourage the youth to face the current crisis with a gutsy outlook and overcome all the fear and negativity. These are also testing times for us as teachers as well as parents, and we need to have a positive approach and unwavering faith in ourselves in order to spread positivity. I hope today's webinar will throw some light on the present scenario and ways to motivate ourselves in order to motivate others. With these few words, I welcome you once again and wish you all a very nice evening with us. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, with this encouraging note, I would now like to call upon Professor Amol Kumar Bhokut, Head of the Department of Commerce, P.N. Das College, and also the convener of this webinar, to come forward with the concept note of the seminar. Professor Bhokut.
Good evening and good morning, everybody. Among many firsts during these few months, this is another first in my life to greet differently to the same venerable virtual assembly at the same time, because of the vast time difference of the different participants and resource persons joining the webinar. Respected Madam Principal, respected Dr. Professor Salehuddin Ahmed, our distinguished resource person of this international webinar, and erudite personalities and academicians, my dear colleagues and students. Since time immemorial, intermittent epidemics ravaged humanity throughout its existence, often changing the course of history of human civilization, and at times signaling the end of entire civilization. The oldest, best preserved prehistoric site completely wiped out by a pandemic is Hamin-Manja, which is in China. The epidemic took place about 5,000 years ago. Thereafter, intermittent plague, Black Death, Spanish flu, SARS, Asian flu, swine flu ravaged many countries in different times. But this COVID-19 is remarkably different and unique in many respects from the earlier pandemics. Firstly, from the viewpoint of sheer scale of devastation it caused. After its first detection in Wuhan, China, it covered almost the entire world within a period of just 6 months. What caused the virus spread so rapidly? It is the globalization, and globalization. The whole world is now a closely knit entity. mobility or migration has increased manifold. This mobility led to rapid human-to-human transmission of the disease. The most important factor making it different from the earlier pandemics, I think, is government intervention or regulation imposed to restrict or contain its spread. Lockdown and suspension of economic activities caused huge job loss and financial misery in the developing countries in particular. The huge suffering caused by sudden suspension of transport services also. We know the plight of the migrant workers in India. The service sector and the industrial sector were worst affected. Industrial production and demand hit rock bottom. In comparison, primary sector were less affected, at least in this part of the world, since there was not much restrictions imposed on this sector. Yes, shutdown of public transport services, no doubt, affected this sector. The new terminology coined in this respect as social distancing is another misnomer. It has further added to the helplessness and stigmatization of the COVID patients or suspected COVID patients. Youth are worst affected by this pandemic. Job loss or loss of earning of the breadwinner of the family, home confinement, home quarantine, isolation, staying away from school and college, remaining away from friends from long time, lack of entertainment opportunities, staying away from club, restaurant, gymnasium for prolonged time has taken a toll on the mental health of the youth. Other factors that led to the stress and anxiety are uncertainty over availability of provisions and medicines, fear of contracting COVID, isolation, most importantly, confusion about do's and don'ts. Media reports and regulatory agencies kept on changing on what to do, how to respond to the present situation. Children's mental health were also severely affected in absence of structured educational environment. Too much screen time for the students and youth for both learning and entertainment going to adversely impact both the mental and physical health of them in the long run. Yes, I believe that COVID will eventually leave us. But what will remain definitely for the foreseeable future is the scar it caused. It will take very long time, maybe several years, to heal the deep wound caused by it. According to WHO, mental health is not just absence of mental disorder. It is defined as a state of well-being where every individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. If we go through this definition of mental health, we may notice that most of us are not able to do justice with our potentialities in the present scenario. Several great personalities can be named who coped with stress very successfully. Helen Keller, our own Dada Thakur, and Rabindranath Tagore, to name a few. One great Bengali poet who could not cope with stress well was Michael Madhusudan Datta. In the present situation, very few of us can productively contribute to the society we live in. This is because of lack of motivation and low morale caused by the pandemic. A motivated mind, an ignited soul can achieve everything it wants. As Swami Vivekananda says, a human brain is equivalent to innumerable, uncountable libraries. We can, as teacher or mentor, motivate the students or the youth to explore their brain and realize their full potentiality. Just like a computer teacher only teaches the student to explore the hardware and the software, these hardware and software are already there in the computer or in the system. A teacher only teaches a student how to use it, how to explore it. To quote William Arthur Ward, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires, that is, motivates. I think a teacher's role as a motivator is far greater than a mere tutor or educator. This role is all the more relevant in the era of free knowledge. Knowledge is freely available in the web, in the internet, books, journals. Nature is a good teacher. All that is needed is inspiration, is motivation to acquire those knowledge, to put it into our hard disks, our brain. There is no straitjacket formula of motivation which suits all, which is applicable to all. It depends upon the socio-economic strata to which a person belongs. Money is the motivator. This suits more to a youth or student who comes from an underprivileged background. Of course, there is exception. As our ancient scripture, Uttar Gita says, Ahar, Nidra, Bhoy, Moithurancha, Shamanta Metat, Pasubhi Ranam, means we are, as human beings, no different from other animals so far as our basic needs or attributes of food, sleep, fear, reproduction are concerned. That's why human being is also called social animal. These needs of food, shelter, sleep, rest, reproduction dominates the behavior of a person so long as these needs are not substantially satiated. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory states that a satisfied need ceases to be a motivator. A person whose basic or primary needs for livelihood and safety are satisfied, he is driven or can only be motivated by higher level needs, such as love and belongingness, recognition, and fame. Realizing or achieving one's full potentiality is the highest level of need. But these needs are self-centered. A good teacher should also teach his students to think beyond self, that is altruism or self-transcendence. It means going beyond oneself. Whatever is good for others is good for me too. I have no separate existence. I have no separate entity. These things are different from the person to whom I serve. Staying motivated can be near impossible when your mind is full of anxiety. No technique is going to keep you motivated when stress is unimaginable. And there is a lot to be stressed about right now. We know that futurity concerns uncertainty. And uncertainty means that we are at a risky juncture. Taking care of yourself can help you to better manage your mental health during this time. Try to move and walk around your home each day. Should eat balanced meal. You must limit the screen time. Try to get at least 8 hours of sleep. Try to reduce or limit the time of listening to pandemic news. We should not start our day with newspapers. The catchlines of newspapers are full of negative news to grab our attention. Stay informed from reputable sources. but avoid getting wrapped up in constant news coverage. That will only heighten your anxiety. Please remember that COVID not only brought about challenges, it has given us some new lessons. Globalization is welcome, but it is fraught with its limitations as well. It taught us how the countries with super military power is helpless in the face of an invisible virus. How big economies were lamenting for basic medicines and masks, PPE, etc. COVID has opened up many new opportunities. We should explore those also. Professor Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed is an expert in the field of human relations. He will deliberate upon the issue in detail. Hope you will enjoy it thoroughly. And at the end, the interactive session is also going to be lively on, I hope. Thank you. Thank you all for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Amollah, for your extremely illuminating speech. Now, before we go into the technical session, I will request all our honorable guests to keep certain things in mind. First of all, please keep your gadgets on mute mode. I would request all of you to keep yourself on mute mode. And more importantly, please don't hit the present button. It's not meant to mark you present, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't hit the present button. I would once again request you, because this would cause certain problems for the resource person to address this gathering. He might be presenting, maybe, I don't know. But please don't hit the present button, ladies and gentlemen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, may I now have the privilege to introduce the resource person of today's seminar, Professor Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed. Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed worked with the world's largest private development organization, BRAC, in different capacities from 1979 to 2004. He was the Deputy Executive Director of BRAC, and in these 25 years in BRAC, he has earned in-depth and meaningful experiences in poverty alleviation through comprehensive strategies, microfinance, education, human resource development, organizational development, and more importantly, the dynamics of NGO involvement and participation in national and international development. He was also involved in building the capacities of the organization through training of the staff, managers, and leaders of BRAC. Dr. Ahmed was selected for the prestigious Fulbright Scholarship in 2004. He went to the USA and taught for a year in 2 educational institutions in Vermont, SIT Graduate Institute and Marlborough College. Dr. Ahmed has also served as the Pro-Vice Chancellor, BRAC University from 2005 to 2009. And during these years, he was involved in leadership, policy making, and institution building of the newly founded university, heading the Initiative on Learning and Development. The Initiative on Learning and Development was a strategic program of the university, and he was a resource person and a mentor in the faculty development. He has implemented capacity building projects, internships, exchanges, and PhD programs with universities of USA and Australia. As Pro-VC of the university, he taught students of Masters in Governance and Development. In 2009, he was appointed the Chief Technical Advisor of the International Poverty Reduction Center in China, IPRCC, in Beijing. Dr. Ahmed had been involved in capacity building of IPRCC and research and training of international participants. He also represented IPRCC in international forums, especially on South-South cooperation. Dr. Ahmed has several publications to his credit, including development strategies and experiences of Bangladesh, case studies of IPRCC, synthesis of microfinance programs of BRAC, Grameen Bank, and ASA, case study on a Chinese country poverty alleviation program, and an article on what Bangladesh could learn from China. He also wrote a case study on a social entrepreneurship organization in Shenzhen, China, named Can You, which was published in an international journal. He published at least 18 short articles in the Star Weekend magazine and the Star campus of the Daily Star Bangladesh on his experiences in China and Bangladesh. After returning from China in 2012, he served the Daily Star Bangladesh as its managing editor for 2 years. Dr. Ahmed has been teaching as the adjunct and visiting professor at the Asian Institute of Management Manila, Independent University Bangladesh, and BRAC University, and also United International University Bangladesh. He initiated a new 3-month development program in development studies on China and beginners China language at the United International University. At present, he is based in Dallas, Texas, USA. Academically, Dr. Ahmed has a PhD in development economics from the Kharkov National University, Ukraine, a BA honors and MA degree in economics from Dhaka University, and a master's in management from the Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines. He finished an intensive 5-week program on leadership at the Harvard Business School and a 4-week course on advocacy at Advocacy, Washington, D.C. He also delivers lectures in universities and colleges all around the globe. May I now request Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed to take over and start the technical session. Dr. Ahmed, please.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Sumon Ranjan Bandyopadhyay, for your excellent introduction. I think I don't deserve so much, but you have said it very well. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, Polta and the world. And also, I don't know, in some places it's good morning. For example, in the Dallas, Texas, it's morning. At the moment, it is almost 9 o'clock in the morning. And so, Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, good evening, good morning to all who are listening to this presentation. Let me start by saying thank you very much, Priyanath Das College or PN Das College, Polta, West Bengal, for inviting me to your very important and timely webinar on the pandemic and the youth. I'm really grateful to Dr. Chormila Dey, principal of PN Das College, for her invitation, a formal invitation. I expressed my gratitude to Professor Shormishta Banerjee of Kolkata University, Management Department. She's a professor in the Management Department. Actually, she introduced me to several colleges in India. I would like to especially thank Professor Amal Kumar Bhakat of the college for contacting me and then convincing me to do this presentation. Without his facilitation, I would not be able to make this connection with you. I think Professor Bhakat is an extremely good motivator. I also thank you, all the participants from all over the world. I'm grateful that you have checked in, and you are from different countries. I know that you are from India, Bangladesh, Brazil, Spain. I know that there is a Bangladeshi in Spain who has checked in, and also United States. Thank you very much for signing in. It is my great honor, privilege, and pleasure to be able to take part in this webinar. Thanks to internet, that we are able to communicate across the world. Isn't that amazing? It is amazing, really. At the start, let me confess that I'm not a big speaker. I've been teaching, I've been training people all throughout my life. So I can speak, but as far as formal speaking is concerned, I'm not a big speaker. And more so in English, because English is not my mother tongue. My mother tongue is Bangla, okay? So I could do better if I spoke in Bangla. Since I have spent many years outside Bangladesh, also inside Bangladesh, most of my life was spent in Bangladesh. Okay, most of my life. And most of my adulthood was spent in the organization BRAC. It was previously originally named Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee, but now the abbreviation BRAC has become a household name in Bangladesh, with its intervention all over the world, not only in Bangladesh, but it solidified in Bangladesh. And its founder, Sir Fazl Ahmed, was a wonderful leader, and I have learned so much working with him. So I have lived and studied in different countries, as the introducer was talking about. So I have lived in China. I have studied in Russia. At that time it was Russia, USSR. But I was actually doing my PhD in Kharkov. So I have taught in the USA and now living in the USA. So my English is a mix of Bangladeshi, Indian, Russian, Chinese, UK and USA English. So it's a mix. So I hope you understand my accents, because every country has its own accents. My accents are mixed up. So hopefully you'll understand me. I'll go slow. You see, Indians and Bangladeshis have a tendency to speak fast, but I'll go slow so that it's legible to you, understandable to you. So with this background, as I said, my work experience is mostly in Bangladesh, and presently I have taken off from full-time paid job. Okay, people call it retirement. I don't believe in retirement. Okay, nobody really retires from life until he dies or she dies. So throughout your life, you are doing something. Okay, you're just taking off from paid job. So you don't retire really. So I didn't really retire. Although people tell me that you're an old man, you have retired. I don't say. I said I don't retire. I'm still working. Okay, I'm still fit. So called. So, and I also believe that there is no end to learning, because you can learn from anyone. And I have instances from the Bangladesh villages, from the West Bengal villages, where people taught me. You see, I am a firm believer of Paulo Freire's theory of learning. He said something very interesting. He said, there's no teaching without learning. Okay? A student learns in the process of, a course of teaching, and the teacher learns in the process of teaching. So it's not true that a teacher molds and forms a student, but in the course of teaching, a teacher is also molded and formed and shaped by his or her students. If you think about it, you realize what I'm trying to say, what Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educationist, tried to say. Okay, his famous book is Pedagogy of the Oppressed. A wonderful book. I read it and I found it fascinating as far as teaching and learning is concerned. So today, my topic of discussion is motivation. How do you really motivate others, especially in this present unprecedented situation of COVID-19 or corona pandemic, with particular reference to the issues of motivation of the youth? It's a complex issue. Motivation is a very complex issue. So throughout my life, I have been motivating people, and I have been managing people, and I've been teaching. So I'll talk a bit about my experiences in this presentation. So initially, I will touch upon the pandemic and its effects on the people, and also on the economies of the world. Then I'll discuss about the problems of the youth and try to answer some questions, okay, such as, what is the problem of the pandemic? Okay, what is pandemic after all? How are the youth affected? I mean, what are the problems the youth are facing? How can we address these issues and problems of the youth? How do we motivate the youth to learn and understand the pandemic? And then I'll talk something about my learning from the theory of motivation. Okay, that's be the agenda, sort of. How do we, particularly the teachers, parents, grandparents, elders, and the youth's peers, motivate the youth to learn from the crisis and take advantage of the opportunities and advantages arising out of the pandemic? How do we really motivate, keep the youth going and keep the youth motivated? And I'll finally talk about my learning from the theories of motivation and my professional and family experiences of motivating people, and say how you could utilize those in your professional and personal life. Before answering the questions, or before I start answering the questions, let me clarify some concepts such as pandemic, epidemic, and endemic. Okay, pandemic, epidemic, and endemic. You see, not all infectious diseases are created equally, though often they are mistakenly and interchangeably used. The distinction between pandemic epidemic and endemic are often blurred. Okay, it's mixed up, okay? Even by medical experts. It is because the definition of each term is fluid, okay? And changes as the disease becomes more or less prevalent. Conversational use of these terms might not require precise definitions. So when we talk about these issues and we use these terms, you may not require precise definitions for that, right? It is important to know the differences to help you better understand the public health news and the appropriate public health responses. Very important to understand the differences. Here are the basic definitions. I know I'm talking basics, but I'm trying to refresh your mind, okay? I'm trying to refresh our knowledge, okay? So the basic definitions are: one, an epidemic is a disease that affects a large number of people within a community, population, or region, okay? That's epidemic. A pandemic is an epidemic that is spread over multiple countries and continents. It is spread over, like COVID-19 has become a pandemic, okay? Endemic is something that belongs to a particular people or country. That's endemic. It's basically of that region, basically of that area, typical of that area. COVID-19 or Corona was an epidemic in Wuhan, China. It was an epidemic there, okay? Say in the beginning of 2020 or in the later part of 2019, okay? So the geographical, and then what happened, it spread. It spread all over the world, okay? It's amazing how this could be spread from China all the way to the US or even South America, right? It's amazing. I mean, I cannot perceive how this is spreading. So the geographical spread of Corona turned it into a pandemic. So that is a pandemic. Endemic is a constant presence in a specified location, okay, in a specified location. For example, malaria now is endemic to parts of Africa, okay? Ice, for example, is endemic to Antarctica, right? Now, a very simple way to know the difference between epidemic and pandemic is to remember the letter P. Remember the letter P in pandemic, which means a pandemic has a passport with visas, okay? A pandemic has a passport. So a pandemic is an epidemic that travels, right? So it traveled from Wuhan to Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, and then to India, and then the Middle East, and then you go to Europe, and it came across the Atlantic to the US. So it traveled. So it had a passport. That's why it's easy to remember the meaning of pandemic if you remember the word, the letter passport, or the letter P. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, let me now try to answer the questions that I've mentioned earlier. Okay. First, what is the problem of the pandemic? COVID-19 is the illness caused by a novel or new coronavirus first identified in Wuhan, China in late 2019. We all know that, right? As my wife and I lived in China for about 4 years, she did her PhD and I was working in the IPRCC. We understood that country, the people and their culture a little better. You see, if you don't live in a country, you don't really understand them, understand the culture, people, and the language. And it cannot be so much understood by visiting. Okay, we visit so many countries, but we don't really understand the culture, people, the languages of those countries. India is a different story for Bangladesh because Bangladesh was part of India. So we have similar culture, especially our culture with West Bengal is very similar. And one of our favorite places that we visit almost every year is Kolkata. You know, we have so many friends in Kolkata. And as I said, we have been learning, you know, and learning has no end. It goes on throughout your life, you know, and you should never stop learning. So once you live in a country for a longer period of time, you understand it, try to understand the cultures of that country. And I found that there's so much to learn from every country. And we learned so much from our stay in China, which was a rare experience for us. So COVID-19 is one of the most severe health problems faced by the world. Most severe, you know. No other disease has spread to so many countries and affected such a large number of people around the world. No other disease. You know, millions of people are being affected. And the most vulnerable are the elderly people. People like me, you know, I am regarded as a senior citizen all over the world. And of course, I get special benefits for that sometimes. But we are very vulnerable to COVID-19. So hundreds of thousands of people are dying. In the United States, I saw yesterday that already in the US, 200,000 people have died. It's unfathomable, you know. So there will be a very long-term fallout of this pandemic. It will be long-term. You know, we have to face the problems in the coming years. So the problem is grave. So I think we more or less know about the serious nature of the problem. We all know that, right? So I'm not going into the technical details because we all are aware about that, and we are, in fact, we are overloaded with information. So I will try to concentrate on the problem related to the youth, which is the topic of this webinar. Okay, so let's discuss this question. How are the youth affected? what are the problems they are facing. Okay. In a recent study of the World Economic Forum, they have mentioned that the minutes and months matter most to the young people during and after the COVID-19 crisis. The study has shown that more than 80% of the young people, which is in millions, and crores, will be at risk at home. Because now we are spending most of our time at home, right? And so 80% of the young will face problems. They'll be at risk at home. Therefore, these millions of young people will require substantial and pressing support from everyone to overcome these problems. Will constantly require support. Okay? Such support should be made accessible to the youth as quickly as possible. We don't have any time to lose. If we started yesterday, it would be better, but let's start now. As we all know, the situation is really grave in India and Bangladesh. Okay. However, if you look at the numbers, it is much worse in the developed countries, in the USA, Europe, Brazil. Countries such as China, Vietnam, New Zealand, and some others have tackled the crisis very well, and there is a lot to learn from them. Okay. So the top 4 concerns of the problems of the youth are as follows. Okay. 1, increased mental health problems. Mental health problems will increase. Okay. The youth or the young people have mental health issues. They are reporting worse mental health following school closures, university closures, and college closures. Or being no longer able to access mental health support. Okay, so they are facing all kinds of problems. I mean, everyone is facing those problems, but I think the youth is facing a tremendous load of problems. Second concern, missing from education. Okay, with educational institutions only partially open and the youth centers closed, a large number of young people are currently not engaged in student activities and have limited or no access to youth work. You see, youth is constantly engaged in work. They are energetic. They want to be active. But this pandemic is creating immense problems for them. So even when schools reopen, by schools I mean education institutions, there will be many persistently absent or not in education, employment, or training, even after the institutions open. Third concern, at risk at home. Life at home is fairly monotonous for the young. Fairly monotonous. I see my children, grandchildren, getting impatient, staying in the home, right? So the movement is restricted. It is difficult for them to keep active and busy. very difficult. So what is happening? There's an increase in television and online games and other, I call it, unnecessary activities, which are sometimes harmful for the young. And the young are also not having physical activities, right? And it has also been observed that there is a rise in domestic violence at home. There are studies which I have read which are talking about increase in domestic violence. The fourth concern is, of course, economic insecurity. Our economies and the people are going to be in economic insecurities. As a result, there will be a reduction in employment and income. Criminal activities will increase. The youth will be frustrated and will find it difficult to cope with these issues. So what should we focus on to minimize the harms being done to the young people? How can we address these issues and problems of the youth? It's a very complex, difficult issue, but we have to address this. Otherwise, there'll be a tremendous crisis among the young people. You see, I love languages. You know, I know at least 10 languages, of which I am fluent in 6. Okay, for example, I'm fluent in Bangla English, of course. and I know Chinese quite well. I used to teach Chinese in Bangladesh. I know Hindi, of course, thanks to television and my exposures to India. I know Hindi, and I know Russian because I studied in Russia. You know, so I know Russian very well. You know, it was better than English, but language is practice. If you don't practice, you don't retain, right? And I have been learning Spanish for the last couple of years. And so language is by passion. You know, I also know a little bit of German, French, Japanese, Arabic, but a little bit. I would not say I know those languages fluently, but I know those languages also. So I learned Chinese. I started learning in Bangladesh, but then when I went to China, my Chinese was polished. And when I came back, I taught Chinese, elementary Chinese, to the students of BRAC University and Independent University, and also United International University in Dhaka. That was an excellent experience. So in Chinese, there is a word which means crisis. Okay? This word is Wei Ji. Wei Ji. So it has 2 parts. It's pronounced Wei Ji. The first part is Wei, which means danger. Okay, Wei Ji means crisis. Okay. So first part is Wei, meaning danger. And the second part is Ji, meaning opportunity. So the Chinese believe that opportunities can be found in a crisis. It's an important lesson I learned, you know. As we understand from what has been happening during the last 6 months or 7 months now, life of the people has gotten disrupted, right? And it is especially true for the young. Their life is really disrupted now. So we should now look for opportunities in this pandemic crisis to alleviate the mental, social, and economic pressures faced by the youth. We should motivate the youth to look for newer opportunities, keep themselves busy, and get involved in positive and meaningful activities. The youth should be correctly informed and educated about the nature of the pandemic. I stress on the word correctly, quote unquote correctly, because a large number of rumors and gossips are circulated in the internet and also through the word of mouth. We should avoid those as much as possible. And you see, the young spend so much time on internet and also on mobile phones, iPhones, that they get carried away, okay? And they start looking at things which are not very useful. So we should avoid those internet or iPhone or mobile phone things. And I would say that do not take everything to the core of your heart. Do not take everything, because if you take everything to the core of your heart, you will suffer, okay? And also, I would like to propose not to use the term social distancing. I don't think it is the right term to be used, because I would propose really to use physical distancing in place of social distancing. I say this because at this time, we need more social cohesion than distancing. We should meet the challenges of the pandemic through our social capital, but keeping our physical distance. And our mental distance can and should be reduced to handle this pandemic. So it can also be done virtually, okay? But I don't think that we should be socially distancing ourselves mentally for solving this problem of COVID-19. Physical distancing, yes, I understand. Physical distancing, mouth covering, and hand washing is extremely important, I understand. But socially, we should be together to face this problem. I hope you understand what I mean. So I think this social distancing thing is not correct. But the world has taken over it, has taken up this terminology, and the whole world is using it. But I personally think that this is not the right word. Okay. So since physical and stay at home are becoming the norms for us now, is a new norm, we should learn to adjust to the current situation. This norm will continue for quite some time, maybe for the next couple of years or even more. So some strategies which we may follow, I'm going to suggest below, okay? I'm going to suggest here. These are very relevant for everyone, especially the young, okay? So, number one, set small daily goals. Okay, please set small daily goals. It is important to recognize that it is not normal times. It's not normal times, right? It's a different time. So our productivity will not be at its peak presently, right? It will not be the same as before, okay? Therefore, be realistic and set your goals accordingly. Big goals may not be achievable right now. Let us try to set manageable, doable, and achievable goals. If you set too lofty goals and not achieve, you may feel frustrated and demotivated. Okay? The second strategy which you can take is carve out time for work and relaxation. Okay? It's very important. Carve out time for work and relaxation. Working from home can be sometimes very stressful. Very, very stressful. You may end up doing too much. On the other hand, you may also be too engaged in watching television like Netflix, YouTube, ZTV, BTV, whatever. Or you can spend too much time on playing games. The most important thing is that you dedicate a chunk of your chunk of a day to work, and then keep your work out of your relaxation time. It should be separate, okay? Plan out a schedule of work and play and try to stick to this weekly schedule like a regular work week. Sorry, I've become used to this American pronunciation of schedule, but we pronounced it schedule. I think the Indians also pronounce it schedule. Okay, third, work, meet, and learn virtually. It's a great opportunity now to work, meet, and learn virtually. Use the platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, FaceTime to study and work with colleagues and friends, and also with teachers, right? However, you have to be conscious about how much time you spend on what. Be focused on learning and achieving your goals. As an example, I can cite an experience from a recent endeavor. As I said, I'm no longer engaged in full-time paid job. Okay. So I'm engaged in other activities. Well, after coming to the USA, I discovered an interesting activity for me. I'm now teaching Bangla language to expatriate Bangladeshi children or Bengali children from all over the world on Zoom. So I have students from USA, Singapore, Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Bangladesh. These are children who lived abroad for so many years that they have not learned Bangla. They're excellent in English, but not Bangla. So their parents requested me, and so I thought I should do this in this last chapter of my life. So these children are all between 6 and 15 years, okay? It's going really well. It's really well going. It's an individual one-to-one teaching on Zoom for 40 minutes each class, 4 times a month. I have found a new niche in teaching in this crisis time. So that's where I got this opportunity in the crisis. So it's a kind of a new profession for me. After teaching graduates and undergraduates for so many years. Now I'm focusing on children. I can only say that it is an extremely rewarding experience. This is enormously satisfying. For both sides, both for myself and my young children. Number 4, prioritize your mental and physical health. Please be aware that stationary life can lead to various physical and mental health problems. Especially for people like us, if we're not physically active, I mean, we have all kinds of issues, pain here, pain there, That's why we have to be physically active. Staying motivated can be nearly impossible when your mind is filled with anxiety. You should always also be careful to do some physical and mental exercises regularly. Walking, jogging, running, freehand exercises, yoga, and meditation will help. But I'm not saying that you go meditate throughout the day, but keep periods where you can meditate. So you can keep these activities scheduled on a daily basis. Avoid being wrapped up in constant news coverages, which may cause unnecessary anxieties leading to mental pressures. Too much overload of these news. Number 5, be happy with not being highly productive right now. You cannot be highly productive right now. Be happy. There will be good days and bad days. Okay, take advantage of the days when you are highly motivated and work and achieve as much as possible. Get through high priority tasks. Expect less on your bad days. As this new norm is setting, we are learning how to best adjust to work from home, being isolated from friends and relatives. It's very difficult, but we have to learn. Though this pandemic may seem to be endless, we should hope for the best and think that it will pass eventually. We should expect a more hopeful future. So finally, let me say a few words I learned from the theories and practices of motivating people. I think Professor Bhakat mentioned about this American psychologist. His name was Abraham Maslow, and his theory was the theory of hierarchy of needs. This theory, deeply touched me. And I have been researching, studying this theory for, I don't know, for the last many, many years. But I was touched by this theory. So I'm sure many of you have heard, as Bhakat was mentioning, so he knows that theory very well. The theory was proposed by Professor Maslow in 1943. It's an old theory, and was fully expressed in his book in 1954 named Motivation and Personality. And let me refresh the 5 stages of Maslow's theory. People have these needs, The first stage was psychological needs, food, water, shelter. Second, safety needs, safety, security. Third, belongingness and love needs, ultimate or intimate relationships and friends. esteem needs, prestige, feelings of accomplishment, and finally, self-actualization, achieving one's full potential, being what you wanted to be, including creative activities. So one problem, one criticism Maslow faced was he said that these needs have to be met in stages. Once you meet the psychological needs or physiological needs, psychological needs or physiological needs also, yeah, you graduate to fulfill safety needs, and then you graduate to fulfill belonging needs. I don't believe that, because I think people need these stages. They need them simultaneously. It's not that you have to graduate from one to the other, because a person whose physiological needs were not fulfilled fully can also want esteem needs, right? Will also want belongingness needs. Anyway, studying, teaching, and learning this very relevant theory, even now, I formed my own living in different cultures and environments. I formed my own interpretations and came up with some basic human needs, or psychological needs, I would say. No matter how much of your physical needs are fulfilled, if your basic psychological and human needs are not fulfilled, you may be frustrated, demotivated, and this is true for everyone, from a baby or a child to an old person like us. Everybody feels these needs, okay? So based on Maslow's theory of motivation, I came up with 4 basic psychological needs of a human being. Everyone wants this. Let me explain these 4 basic needs. 1, everyone wants to live. We all want to live. And we are very selfish in the sense that we want to live indefinitely. Although we know that we have to die someday, but we want to live indefinitely. An example from my own family. My father died at the age of 75. He suffered a lot from cancer. For the last 6 months of his life, he was completely bedridden. He was in excruciating pains and was suffering excessively. And we witnessed that. It was intolerable for all of us and also for my father. And my mother worked like a superhuman being. You know, she was taking full-time care of him, day and night. So I saw and witnessed and felt how he, my mother, and we suffered. Then at the end of 6 months, my father passed away. It was extremely sad for the family. You realize this mental suffering when you lose your near and dear ones. I'm sure many of you have this experience. So I now sometimes think that I should die before I am 75. With this health and the physical activity, I think I will live up to 75 quite easily, provided I don't meet a an emergency situation. So I want to die when I'm still able. So I don't suffer myself. I don't let my wife and children suffer. Okay. So 75 is not very far from where I am now. It's only a couple of years. Okay. So, but the reality is, suppose when I'm 74, Professor Bhakat comes to me and tells me, Salehuddin da, আপনাকে তো আগামী বছর মরতে হবে, তৈরি হয়ে যান, get ready, you have to die next year. But I will then say, smiling, that Amol, I didn't want to die. I said it out of emotion, but I really don't want to die. No one wants to leave this beautiful world and the people around him or her. This reminds me of the first few lines of Rabindranath Tagore's poem, Pran. He said, মরিতে চাহি না আমি সুন্দর ভুবনে, মানবের মাঝে আমি বাঁচিবারে চাই। এই সূর্য করে এই পুষ্পিত কাননে জীবন্ত হৃদয়ে মাঝে যদি স্থান পাই। Which is very true, right? I'm sorry this is in Bangla, so some people may not understand, but basically nobody wants to die. I want to remain among people. I want to be in this beautiful garden of the earth, and I'm sure I'll find a small place there. That's what he said. So the second one is that everyone wants to love and be loved. The problem with this is that we all want to be loved more than love. We are selfish in this respect. সবাই চায় আমাকে ভালোবাসুক, এবং ভালোবাসা দেওয়ার ব্যাপারে আমরা কিন্তু আসলে কৃপণ। So what I said is everybody wants to be loved, and we are stringent as far as giving love is concerned. But love is not a one-way, but a two-way traffic. Okay? So I would suggest that love more than be loved. The more you give, the more you get. You can definitely find examples from within your families, among your friends, and relatives. Third, everyone wants to be recognized. We all want to feel important. There are many experiences which you are aware of when in our family and workplace. When one is ignored or not recognized, he or she becomes demotivated and less productive, right? You don't want to work in an environment where you are not listened to or given due importance. Even in our families, if you observe, you'll find how a child or a baby wants attention from her or his parents and brothers and sisters or grandparents. I'm a grandparent, so I'm talking about grandparents as well. If she does not get it, she's annoyed and angry, and she expresses it in different ways. The last one, the fourth one, is everyone wants variety in life. Okay? বৈচিত্র্য চাই। বাংলায় আমরা সবাই বৈচিত্র্য চাই। Monotonous work is not motivating. See how our people work in factories, such as assembly plants, whether it's Toyota assembly plant or Maruti assembly plant or Pragati assembly plant in Bangladesh, it doesn't matter. Assembly plants are notorious of engaging people in small bits of work for 8 hours. And also working in computers. You look at the life of data entry people. They go on pushing the buttons for 8 hours a day. Can you imagine how monotonous it is? So people get tired. People get demotivated. People get frustrated after continuing such work for several years. That's what happens, right? So the situation during the pandemic resembles assembly plants or rows of people behind computers in a data entry workplace. So we should make varieties available for people, especially in this pandemic situation. I'm not suggesting what kind of varieties. I think people are intelligent enough to find varieties for young people. So my dear viewers and listeners, permit me to highlight and remind you the 4 needs human needs I just discussed. 1, we want to live. আমি বাঁচতে চাই। 2, we want to love and be loved. আমি ভালোবাসা দিতে চাই এবং ভালোবাসা পেতে চাই। Number 3, we want to feel important. আমি স্বীকৃতি চাই। Right? And last one is we want variety. আমি বৈচিত্র্য চাই। So I have mentioned this last bit on human needs to remind you that when you try to motivate the youth, listen to them. Please keep these 4 needs in mind. I have found this very useful in managing people and in teaching students. If you don't want to use it, it's up to you. But I tell you, this will help you in motivating others. It has helped me for the last 40 years to motivate people in BRAC, in the universities, and also in my family and with my friends and relatives. It has tremendously helped. And I'm sure it will be useful for you as well. I'm sure you're doing it, but thinking it in an organized way helps, okay? So with these words, thank you very much for your patience and support. I'm sorry I talked for so long, but hope it made sense to you all. And I wish you all the very best from the core of my heart. I wish you all the very best, no matter where you are. But people are people, Let me finish by giving you a tip to be happy. Think positive. You'll be happy and motivated in life. Think positive. I think we all have to think positive. Negative thinking does not help. So if you think positive, you'll be happy. Be happy. And thanks again. And I also like to thank again the organizers, especially Professor Bhagat and others, and especially the organizers, the Department of Commerce and the IQAC, Internal Quality Assurance Cell of P.N. Das College. I read about P.N. Das College and I was impressed by your records. So thank you again, and keep me in your prayers. I'll keep all of you in my prayers, and goodbye. I think we'll get into an interactive session now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your illuminating lecture.
I think it was not too long.
Yes, sir?
I hope it was not too long.
No, it was quite fine. It was very engaging. I just noted down everything that you said, almost everything. Now, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your illuminating lecture that didn't only augment our knowledge, but also engaged our emotions and imaginations. As you cruised from definitions to explanations, from illustrations to the enactment of the art of dissemination of knowledge. And an empathetic communion with the students was also touched upon. From definition of pandemic, epidemic, and endemic to the abstractions of the condition of the aged and the young, you touched everything, sir. The calm poise with which you delved deep into the issues that haunt us through and into the restless and sleepless nights is really another aspect of the learning experience that we had this evening. You have rightly so drawn our attention towards the domestic violence and the psychological impact of the pandemic on the youth. The need to confront and negotiate the crises rather than skirting and evading them has been emphasized upon by youth. The quest for opportunities in moments of crisis is really a means to achieve a meaning in life as a being than being bowed down by the dreary consciousness of nothingness. You proposed not to use the term social distancing. Rightly so, sir, because WHO itself has backtracked on the term that it had itself coined in the beginning, in March 20, maybe. Looking forward with a degree of positivity, with, of course, a caution to set realistic goals, and most importantly, to find some time to relax and play, you dealt with these issues too. Work, meet, and learn virtually. You offered the new mantra for the neo-normal life. Physical activities do really pay rich dividends, you reminded us. Surely, sir, so many pandemics passed away, and we think and we know this too will pass. And finally, you have also talked about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs that has been taken up only to be modified with one's own lived experiences and your own interpretations of the 4 basic needs: the need to live, the need to love and be loved, and to be important, and last of all, the need to absorb the varieties that life has in store for us. And finally, you have talked about our own Rabindranath, Morite Chahina ami e sundor bhuvone, manober mache ami bachibare chai. It was really a fantastic and fascinating experience listening to you, sir. Thank you, sir. I would now request Dr. Madhuchanda Lahiri, Honorable Coordinator, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, P.N. Das College, to assist you with the interactive session. Dr. Lahiri, would you please assist, sir, with the interactive session?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shamaranjan Maldokarna. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
You're perfectly audible.
Okay. A very good evening to our learned resource person of the evening, Dr. Salehuddin, sir. From all of us here at the Internal Quality Assurance Cell in Das College, from the Department of Commerce, of course, and the entire PNDAS family. So it was indeed a great learning experience, and I think we all enjoyed listening to your highlighting the main problems of facing today's youth, right from the increased mental health issues that they are facing, the domestic violences, and life at home being boring. So all those pointing out being done by you in very lucid and simple terms, and the main tagline, but which we can say that opportunities can be found out from the crisis. Of course, sir. Otherwise, we would not have been here in an international webinar for a college in one of the rural areas of West Bengal. We are indeed turning this crisis situation into an opportunity for us and getting to hear from such learned persons like you, sir. Sir, I also thank you for pointing out the different ways in which we can keep ourselves motivated. The youth can keep themselves motivated. And the chat box, in fact, is giving a vivid description of the lecture, of your lecture that the people have enjoyed so much. There are lots of questions. I'll straight away go to the question part. The first question that we have is from someone with a ID paid Bojan. He asks, have any international thought about online education system for deaf and dumb students are there, and how to keep them motivated? Sir, your take on this?
Well, there are different ways, and there are special people working on those. But I am not really working on those. But I think there are institutions, there are people who work on how to keep the physically or differently abled people in the world. There are many like that. So I'm not an expert on that, but I'm sure you'll find institutions who are doing that. And you were absolutely right in saying that this is a bigger challenge. You know, how do you really keep them motivated online? It's difficult, but anything is doable in this world. So I hope people also find solutions to the kind of questions you have asked. I'm sure you are working on this field as well. So please talk to them and find ways and means. Thank you very much for an intelligent question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next question is from Shumanto Kashyapi. He's a PhD candidate at the University of New Hampshire. He would like to ask, being a PhD student, he often feels frustrated, depressed, and overwhelmed with the academic challenges. He also points out that these challenges are mostly the rejections from journal reviewers. So how do a PhD student keep himself or herself motivated through these tough times and keep moving forward in his or her academic pursuits? So please.
Okay, this is a question, again, a very important question, because most of the PhD scholars face these issues, right? I also faced it, but in my time there was no internet, and there was no iPhones or mobile phones, so the challenges were different because we had to read physically a lot and then do research on physical resources. So the challenge now is more complicated and complex, I understand. But you see, as I said, I mean, you will feel these pressures throughout your PhD course. You know, you'll feel these pressures from all sources. But I would say that, you know, it is said that if you stick to it, you will overcome your PhD problems, research problems in the future. And I also understand your issue of getting rejected by your reviewers. You know, this is absolutely correct. But I would say that you have to stick to it, and you have to listen to the feedback given by the reviewers if they give you feedback, and then work on them. But be positive. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You know, these feedback will come, and you have to face them. And don't be frustrated. Think positive. That something good is waiting for you beyond this crisis. Okay? Something very good. So I'm sure you'll complete your PhD. And I tell you, if you want to really contact me further, you can always use my my email. It is sahmed46@gmail.com. Sahmed, SAHMED. You're in New Hampshire, so you're in the US, so you can also contact me on telephone. But be positive, you know, and don't be frustrated. Being frustrated does not help. You know, people worry about the past and the future. Just don't worry about the past and the future. These are not under your control. So worry about the present and take things in that spirit. And these feedback from the reviewers is usual. We used to get it at the time of doing PhD. These are very frustrating, I know. But once you go through the whole process, I think this is also part of learning. Okay, so good luck to you, Sumanto, and I'm sure you'll try to overcome these issues. These are not big issues. Take in that spirit. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next question is from Swarnendu Sarkar. He says that he thinks about the negatives before the positives. Now, how to remove the negative thinking from his mind and how to outflow from depression is his query. So
okay, so this is another tricky question. You see, it depends on your experiences, on your own ways of thinking. But basically, you know, you have to think positive first. Okay, think about it, and then you think about the negatives. And if you think about the negatives first, you will become frustrated. But don't worry. Think about the positives. And there are a lot of positive things happening, and I'm sure you can do it. You know, just stick to it. Just think positive. You know, because negatives will not help you. And you'll feel later on that these negatives were not necessary. So think in that line. Wish you good luck. But think positive. Yeah. Thank you.
Sir S. Sujatha has a question. How to help students to be emotionally stable and acquire tolerance? You
see, this is another very difficult question. How to make students emotionally stable? You know, the thing is, I feel that the four principles I mentioned at the end of my speech. You know, you have to listen to the young. You see, as we age, our propensity to listen reduces. You know, but I think it's very important to listen to the young. Listen as much as possible, and then talk about solutions together. You know, I think I have benefited from this strategy. But people have a lot of things to say, but we don't listen to them. You know, and that's the problem. So I think, and listen to their problems, discuss with them, and I think jointly you can find solutions. Okay, thank you.
Our next question is from Rajini Das. She says, Sir, what is your take on the future of our students who will be completing their graduation, post-graduation or research work in the next 4 to 5 years in terms of social, economic and political life due to this pandemic?
You see, in my case, it's a good question. Thank you. In my case, it's different. You know, as I said, I don't worry about the past and the future. You cannot plan the future. It's hard. People make plans for 5 years, 10 years, but it doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work. So you have to make your present the most resourceful, the most active, and make it happy. Okay. So I cannot really foresee what will happen in the next 4 or 5 years, especially for graduates and master's degree holders or PhD degree holders in the next 4 or 5 years. But let me say that India is a huge country, and thanks to the globalization, the world has become small. So you can go anywhere in the world to work or to study. So don't worry what is going to happen. Just build yourself, you know, build yourself. One suggestion I can give you is learn foreign languages. Why? Because then you never know what will happen to you in 4 or 5 years. The world, as I said, the world is becoming smaller. So learning languages can help you to understand other cultures, to appreciate other cultures. And if you go to that country to work, it will really help. It will immensely help, you know. So that's one strategy I have. And the second strategy, don't worry about the future. Things will take its own course. Worry about the present. Worry how to solve your present problems and live in the present, okay? Worrying does not help. Thank you very much.
Uttam Datta, he has a question. How is it possible to motivate the youth in facing the threats and use opportunities in pandemic?
Well, I said in my
it was there in your,
about these issues, but I think, as I said, find opportunities. I found opportunities at this late age of my life, and I am enjoying it, you know. And I think there are opportunities waiting for you outside the world. You have to be innovative. You have to observe, and you have to learn, and you come up. For example, I tell you, people like us are basically, I would say, unskilled as far as internet is concerned, or as far as using IT is concerned. But as I said, there is no age to learning. I started learning Chinese at the age of 60. And so people told me, you must be crazy. You're learning Chinese. How will you retain that? I said, I can. I think I can. So that I can approach has to be there. And your learning attitude, you have to learn. So I learned Chinese, and I'm learning Spanish, and I'm also learning the technology as much as possible, because technology to us is very difficult. You know, the youngsters, my grandchild knows more technology than I do, but you can learn. And as I said, anybody can teach you. Even your child can teach you as far as internet is concerned, or as far as fiddling with the mobile is concerned. You know, so I would say that learn, and you'll definitely find opportunities. Thank you.
Shudipta Das, she has a question. How to stay motivated all the time?
As I said, don't worry about the future and the past. Worry about the present, and take the best possible ways to keep motivated in the present. So that will help. Thank you very much.
Rituparna Roy has, she asks you to suggest some positive views to remove her negative views and eradicate the coronaphobia from her mind, because every time her negative views come first. Please suggest something.
As I say, thank you for this question, because this is a question which is very relevant now. But
Yes.
I would say that worrying will not help. Looking at news coverages, when I see news in television or read newspapers, I really get down. Why? Because it's always negative. The negative things are flashed. Positive things are not flashed, unfortunately. So the less you see the news once a day, okay? And the less you worry about Corona, the better it is for you. If you worry, it doesn't help you. So what I would suggest, that take the precautionary measures which are already there. Okay, one is hand washing. Okay, one is covering the face, covering the mouth, and the other one is keeping the physical distance. Okay, I think these three strategies will help you. And don't worry about what is going to happen. Don't worry about people getting problems through pandemic, through this coronavirus. Well, it is, if you look at the number of accidents happening in India or Bangladesh or United States, and people die, it is mind-boggling, the figures. But we are not very frustrated with that, Why? Because it's not flashed so much. Okay, so I would say that, of course, you must be concerned about it, but don't worry. Take it easy and be aware. Of course, be aware, but don't let overload of information get into you. That will be harmful for your mind and also for your health. So I would say that don't worry. It will take its own course, and let's hope for the best for our future. Pandemic will go, I think. It takes time. Thank you.
Thank you. Subhranshu Pan, he has a question that not only students, but also teachers are not able to keep themselves away from anxiety and depression. Now, how to stable the minds of teacher in this situation?
Well, it's up to the teachers, because it's up to the teachers to keep themselves aware and also keep motivated and also motivate others. There are all kinds of people in this world, so there will be some who will be less motivated than some who are more motivated. But I would think that the teachers, the teachers are very respectful people, and the teachers should be aware that they are taken as role models by their students. So I should not create a role model which is frustrating in front of the students. I should create a role model which is an example for the students to follow. So I would think that teachers, although internally you may be suffering with frustration, but don't express that in front of students. That won't help the students, because students really look up to you, okay? And you have to create that example in front of the students. So try that. Let's try that. As I said, nobody can really motivate people from out of blues, but you have to create an environment which is motivating and which is positive. So I think that's important for you. So I would suggest for the teachers to create the right kind of role model for the students. Thank you for this question.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Raj Naru, he has a question. Is stress always bad for individual? He relates a situation in the present situation of current events. The news on the TV or visual media, they help us to know about the current events, which creates maybe depressing situation, but it also helps us to make an awareness. So in this pandemic situation, should we avoid watching news channel every morning as it is stressful, or should we go on watching for being aware of the situation?
I think, yeah, you are right. I mean, I also watch TV news, or I also read newspapers every day, but I don't take everything to the core of my heart. বিকজ আপনাকে যদি কেউ কিছু বলে আপনি যদি এই কথাটাকে অন্তঃস্থলে নিয়ে যান তাহলে কিন্তু আপনার কষ্ট হবে। হ্যাঁ, so that's why I'm saying that you don't take everything to the core of your heart. Be aware, but be intelligently aware. Okay, then don't let these negative news overwhelm you. I have heard people saying that this has happened, that has happened. Ultimately, it was found out this is a fake news. I mean, internet, so many things are going on. Most of it is fake. Look at the Facebook interventions. Most of it is fake. It's stunning news going on, and people do become frustrated. I know, but let's take these news items with a grain of salt. For awareness building, you must know the statistics. You must know the condition of the people. I understand that. I do that myself, but I don't take everything to my heart. I don't take everything to my heart, and that will make you more frustrated. That's the strategy I have, but I don't know. I mean, people are different in different countries, different societies, and societal pressures also influence your perceptions. But let's take in that spirit if we can. Thank you.
Anushka Roy. She has a question. Is it okay not to be productive daily in this situation?
Well, I said that. You will not be as productive as you were before this situation. Of course, it's okay. I mean, you cannot have all good days, and you will have bad days. But don't be frustrated. Think that tomorrow it will be better. Thank you.
And we need to relax also.
Pardon?
We need to relax also, sir. As you said.
Yeah, of course.
Sir, I think, yes, Tapun Ghosh, he has a question. How can we overcome the inertia of virtual learning in future?
Well, I personally think that virtual learning is not an alternative to physical learning. Okay, for a teacher, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult situation. But I think a time will come. But I think virtual learning is also teaching us a lot of things. For example, this particular webinar, and I'm interacting with people from different countries. This would be impossible physically, right? So this has a very good advantage. But at the same time, I think teaching should be a combination of virtual and physical teaching, okay? And as I said, the good days are ahead, so let's hope for the best. But in the meantime, learn as much as possible how best to utilize the online teaching, how best to utilize that. And there are different forums or different platforms through which you can do that. And it really helps. For example, this online, what I'm doing for the children, one-to-one, it's having a fascinating results. These children who did not do anything in Bangla is now writing, reading, and talking in Bangla. And it's a tremendous opportunity I have come across. So that's what I would think. But I understand fully well that there's no alternative. Virtual teaching is not alternative to physical teaching. But learn as much as possible. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Somnath Boshak, he has stated a fact. It's not a question. He has said that your lecture is really very helpful, and he says that positive thinking is the main source of energy for us to overcome such pandemic situation. So it's a statement he's making.
Absolutely right. I think he's right.
Yes, sir. So I think we have answered all the questions that were there in the chat box. So now I thank you once again, sir, for such an enriching experience, and sir, for suggesting also the ways out.
Thank you.
For saying that, of course, we all want to live, we want to be loved, and we want varieties, and so we have to use the opportunities that come our way, and we have to stay positive. So all these points may be noted by all of us listening to this wonderful webinar, and may we imbibe these things in us and enjoy this phase of pandemic and learn as much as we can from here. So with these words, I hand over to Professor Shuman Ranjan Bandyopadhyay. Shumanda, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed. Thank you, Dr. Lahiri. মানে আপনার একটু বাংলায় একটা প্রশংসা আমাদের তরফ থেকে হয়তো প্রাপ্য রয়েছে, আমরা সেইভাবে দিয়ে উঠতে পারিনি। মানে অসাধারণ একটি উপস্থাপনা। একজন এখানে বলেছেন, চ্যাট বক্সে লিখেছেন, অত্যন্ত মনোমুগ্ধকর একটি উপস্থাপনা আজকে আপনি এখানে রেখেছেন। সত্যি মানে আমি বিশেষ করে, নিশ্চয়ই আরো সবাই আবিষ্ট চিত্তে কিন্তু আমরা শুনেছি আজকে আপনি যেভাবে বলছিলেন। অত্যন্ত প্রাসঙ্গিক কিছু তথ্য এনেছেন, কিন্তু সেগুলো কি এত সুন্দরভাবে আপনার উপস্থাপনা আপনি করেছেন, সত্যি মুগ্ধ হওয়ার মতো। মানে এটা সত্যিই বোধহয় একটা ইন্সপিরেশনাল লেকচার, ইন্সপিরেশনাল।
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we are almost on the last lap of today's webinar. But before we call it a day, let us have the concluding remarks from Professor Shongita Bagh of the Department of Commerce, P.N. Das College. She would be offering the vote of thanks. Professor Bagh.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, perfectly audible.
A very good evening to one and all. On behalf of the entire family of P.N. Das College, and particularly on behalf of the Department of Commerce and IQAC, I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to those who have contributed to organize the webinar successfully. COVID-19 has posed unprecedented global challenges in many ways. This pandemic is having many life-altering, lasting impacts on the lives of the youth. It has posed a great challenge before us, how to keep the youth both motivated and energized in the educational sector as students, and at the same time at the home as our children and siblings. Keeping in mind, this webinar was organized, and on behalf of the organizing committee, I believe this objective is greatly achieved. At the outset, I thank a resource person, Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed, for making an excellent presentation and making the webinar a very lively and interesting one. We're really enlightened with your knowledge and deliberations. We, the entire P.N. Das family, is really grateful to you, sir, for readily accepting our invitation in spite of your very busy schedule. What I feel was tormenting for you was to answering our call at odd hours, since we know that the time difference between Dallas, Texas and India is around 9.5 hours. Thank you, sir, once again. I'm really thankful to our chief patron of the webinar, our principal madam, Dr. Shormila De, for her enthusiastic support behind our whole effort. She gave us autonomy and guided us whenever needed in this episode. Thank you, ma'am. My special thanks goes to the coordinator IQAC, Dr. Madhuchanda Lahiri, for her overwhelming, wholehearted support in organizing this webinar. It would not have been possible without your unstinted support. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank Professor Shuman Ranjan Bandyopadhyay for his heartfelt contribution to conducting the program very well. Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Department of Commerce, my special gratitude goes to every member of the IQAC team who guided and stood behind us when it matters. I acknowledge the unwavering support received from the teaching and non-teaching staff of the college for their technical help and other support, I sincerely thank you all. My thanks also goes to all the participants from different states of India. My special gratitude goes to foreign participants, many of whom, in spite of their inconvenience, graced the occasion with their participation. A big thanks to you all. An event like this cannot take place overnight. It requires an eye for details and meticulous planning. So, my warm regards and heartfelt thanks to the person behind this, Professor Amal Kumar Bhagat, HOD, Department of Commerce, Dr. Mohsin Mullik, and Professor Meenal Kanti Dotto. Thank you all, my dear colleagues. I once again thank everyone whose contribution has made this webinar a successful one. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Shongita. And thank you, everybody. Thanks to all of you. And with this, we come to the close of this webinar. Hope to meet you once again in the near future with a similar program. Hope to meet you and hope everybody stays safe, everybody stays healthy. Thank you. Thanks to all.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much. Professor Bandyopadhyay, you did a great job of facilitating.
তাই
তাই
ভালো লেগেছে আপনার।
খুব ভালো লাগলো সবার সাথে কথা বলে।
So, Alex, should I stop it?
হ্যাঁ
I'm stopping.
এবার রেকর্ডিংটা বন্ধ করে দিন।
হ্যাঁ রেকর্ডিং বন্ধ করে দিন। I am looking forward